Welcome to the OrientDB Getting Started training covering the HTTP REST API built into OrientDB. The rise of the RESTful API has taken the network application world by storm. Long gone are the days where XML services ruled the landscape. Today, convenient JSON-based services are available, providing platform-independent access to data services. OrientDB builds a REST API out of the box for your database. You have the ability to perform CRUD operations, inspect your database, classes, clusters, etc. You can execute server-side functions, and even manage and build your data model. Let's discover the REST API provided by OrientDB. So I have a browser window open with OrientDB Studio, and you can see that I have the Vehicle History Graph database open and running. In another tab, I have a great utility called Postman, which helps you work with HTTP requests, and I'll be using this to demonstrate some of OrientDB's REST API features. The first concept to understand is the idea of authentication. First, we'll disconnect by going to localhost port 2480, which is the HTTP port for OrientDB. Disconnect. We'll send, and you can see that we get a message logged out. The alternate to this is connect, and we'll connect with basic authentication using the admin credentials by going to localhost 2480/connect, and we're going to connect to the vehicle history graph. You'll see we get a 204 OK message, meaning that we've authenticated properly. We have access to a lot of information that we can get from the server through this REST API. We'll do a GET request at /list databases, and that will give us a list of the two databases that we have currently active on our server. We can do a GET request for the database vehicle history graph, and it will give us all kinds of information about this database and its properties. Likewise, we can inspect classes. So this is going to port 2480/class/ the database name / the class name, which happens to be vehicle here. It's a GET request again, and we'll be able to inspect that class. It's not only reading information, you can also create structure. We have a make class at /class vehicle history graph, and we can make a new class 2. We'll send, and you'll see that we get the ID number back. Now if we were to do a class vehicle history graph, new class 2, rather than a post, which is a create, we do a GET request. You can see we now have a class. So if we did a GET with a new class 3, send, we're getting an error. If we post new class 3, send, we create the class, go back to a GET, and now we'll be able to inspect the new class. You can create classes, create properties, and actually build your model using the REST API. We can inspect clusters and get the members of that cluster back by using /cluster, the name of the database, and the name of the cluster in a GET request. So you can see it's actually returning the data entities that belong to that cluster. You can execute commands on the server using the command operator. So /command, the name of the database, the language, and then in the body, passing your command. We'll delete the France cluster, which we just inspected, and it's a post request. You can see that we have the result. And if we go back to get cluster members and look for the France cluster in a GET request, you can see that now the result is empty, meaning that our previous command function worked properly. We can execute server-side functions. Right now, if we go and get a class for person, you can see that we have 707 records. We'll go to function, and we have a create people function that takes in a parameter of how many people you would like to create. It's a post request because it does make changes to the database. If it doesn't change the database, you can use a GET request, but if it does, you need to use a post. We'll create the 100 people. You'll see we get our value back, which was defined in the function of success. And if we go back to our history and inspect the person class again, you'll see that we now have 807 records. you can actually go ahead and export your data from the REST API. This won't work properly here because it sends down a gzip file. You can also import, and there are many other utility functions. There's a lot of functionality for working with data. We can delete a document based on the ID. So let's choose an ID that we know is there. We'll select from person. So we know that ID 20-1012 is in the database. We'll do a delete request with that ID at /document/ the name of the database and run it. You'll see we get a 204 OK. And now if we go back and rerun the same command, we no longer have that record. We can get a document by class, meaning that we can use this syntax, document by class / name of the database / class name / offset in that class. So we'll do 1011 and a GET request, and it will bring back that record. Get document is the same function, but a little bit different syntax. We can go ahead and get the actual ID from the same record, and rather than going through the class, we can just go directly to the ID using the cluster number and the ID, send, and we'll get that same record back. We can execute a query. Here we're doing /query /database name, the language which is SQL, select from person in a GET request, and this is returning all of the people records in our database. If we just want to check the status of a record, we can do a head request for the ID. In this case, we're doing it document by class, name of the database, person is the class, and 1012 is the ID. And you can see that we get a not found. If we do a 1011 and send, we get a 204 OK. And this is useful for just going ahead and inspecting if the document exists. Likewise, we could do the same thing with an ID, and it works the same way, not found, but this one is still there, and we get our 204. We can post a document, which means we'll create a document. So we can go /document / the database, do a post request, and in the body pass in a name. So we'll create a document, Barney Rubble. You can see that we get back a reference to the document with the ID that was created. And now if we go ahead and get document using that same ID, we get Barney Rubble back. So there's a ton of flexibility and capability in this REST API. It is well documented on our website, and you can use this as an agnostic way to access your data from whatever platform you choose.